Okay, this is the audience. Myself. And
Hello, I'm Eric Ayers, and today I'm going to do a speech on the culture of board games. How many of you have played a board game? Everyone? Everyone. Most of us have been exposed to them in one way or another as they're very popular in our culture. I myself have been collecting and playing them for many years now. And today I want to introduce you to three main key points: the spirituality from which they emerge, the art and discipline within them, and the strategy and thought behind them. I'm going to start with the spirituality factor. Initially, in various cultures, board games are used as a means of divination, spiritual connection, and astrological readings, such as the case of the game called Senet, a game linked to the spirituality of the inhabitants of ancient Egypt. The Senet is a strategic game for two people that has similar mechanics to backgammon. Senet is known to be as old as the pyramids and even older than the pharaohs themselves. Another iconic game was called The Daily Life of Ancient Egyptians. The game is closely related to the transit into death. It was believed that the steps towards the afterlife, the deceased had to play the game of Senet against some deity, and that the type of trip that they would undertake would be related to the results of the game. The link of the spiritual can be found in other games around the world, such as Patoli, a game of Aztec origin where luck defines movements of the player. Although it was based on chance, it was used to carry out mystical readings, and another use that was given to this game was to bet, and there was a huge fanaticism for this type of entertainment. Regardless of whether these games used high strategy mechanics or were based on mere chance, they managed to sustain themselves culturally through the spiritual role they played. So now you have talked about spirituality. I will introduce you to the art and discipline in games. In China, about 4,000 years ago, one of the most famous ancient games emerged, Go, combining painting, calligraphy, and the interpretation of the Gaiquan instrument. Go is a strategic game for two people, similar to chess. It came to be considered one of the arts that ancient Egyptian men had to master to become a scholar. It was said to excel in this board game, you had to have tactics of the soldier, accuracy of the mathematician, the imagination of the artist, the inspiration of the poet, the calm of the philosopher, and the greatest intelligence. Both Korea and Japan appropriated this game and implemented it into their school systems. Now that we have talked about the art and discipline, I will introduce you to the strategy and thought. The birth of modern board games has its roots in the European culture, and more specifically in the German one. Euro games were more strategic and more skillful games and put luck aside and implemented ways to be manipulated by the player. This movement influenced not only games coming from Europe, but those from all over the world. This is how the greatest game designers began to appear, who through their creations expressed new cultural and artistic characteristics of the current human being. In Germany, the successful Klaus game, the Settlers of Catan, was introduced in 1995. This is a game where the decisions made by the player focus on strategies and experience of the game rather than luck. Those who participate have control of what happens to a large extent. According to Board Game Geek, there are about 51 different types of board games today. They are either simple but interesting games of short duration, complex games of conquest or competition, entertaining and difficult construction games, or even cooperative games where players have to work together to figure out how to beat the board game themselves. In conclusion, each board game is different and experience an adventure where minds and bodies are guided by the author of the game and expressed in reflexive journeys like works of art. There's something in the object and its experimentation that will continue to amaze us. Board games have come a long way, from the spiritual beginnings to art and discipline to strategy and thought. I hope that you learned something today about board games and maybe inspired you to play one with like languages or anything else that require practice to master. Thank you.